Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the Ford Tech Make You Loco channel. Today we're going to show you how to remove and replace your 5.4 liter 3-valve engine from your Ford F-150. Now because we're working on an 04 F-150 right here, the procedure is going to look exactly the same for 04 through 08. Ford really didn't touch the engine compartment at all, whereas 09 and 10 models, Ford started changing a few different things in the engine compartment, so it's just going to be a little bit different, but the same basic principles apply. And of course, it also applies to the Expedition, the Navigator, the Super Duties, that all use this same engine, okay? What's great about this video is I'm going to give you a lot of detail as we go along here, plus a lot of tips and tricks for getting stuff out of there, reinstalling stuff, and what to check while the engine is out. The idea here is to do it once and be done and have a perfect, smooth running, leak-free engine in the end. It's a lot of work. Let's get to it. All right, you guys ready for this? It's going to be a lot of work, but in the end, when you take that first test drive with your brand new engine in there, it's going to be super satisfying. Now, I'm not going to go over everything in detail where you sit there and watch me take off individual components. That would be like an 8-10 hour video. What we're going to do is we're going to point out items to take off, and then we're going to cut to the next area and tell you what to take off on those. And then we'll go over the critical areas like pulling the engine out and then mating it back up with the trans in detail. The very first thing you want to do is disconnect your negative battery cable. It's an 8mm nut on there. So we'll go ahead and disconnect that. And then you want to wrap a shop rag around it and kind of isolate the ground so it can't connect down there, so we're safe for now. Then immediately after that, you want to pull the hood. The hood's coming off anyway to pull the engine up and out of here, but you want to take it off now because getting back into these deep, dark areas here with the hood gone will be so much easier, trust me. So what you want to do to be safe is pack some rags in here underneath it, and then pack a rag that's folded, 3-4 times over here down on the side so you protect the fender, both sides, okay? Then we're going to go ahead and we're going to mark the hinge location to the hood. That's going to make lining up the hinges so much easier in the end. Everything's just going to kind of fall into place. So use a permanent marker, a grease pencil, whatever you want. And then we're going to take one of these bolts out of here, get it off to the side. Then with someone holding the hood right here, holding it, kind of supporting it, it's aluminum, it's pretty light. You're going to come over here with a flat blade screwdriver or a pick. You're going to get in there and that little slot right there, get underneath there, and you're going to pop that clip out of there and then pull this whole lift strut off of here. You're going to take it and you're going to lay it down right here on top of the fender. This side stays in. Same thing on both sides. And then with your assistant holding the hood, you're going to zip off the last bolt. It'll kind of sag and lay on these rags, and then you can go to the other side and do the same thing. And then you can pick up this whole thing together up and off of here and put it off to the side. All right, now with the hood gone, we can go ahead and start pulling off some of these bulky items in the engine compartment here and start clearing it out. But first, let's start draining the engine coolant and the engine oil. We'll get those draining the whole time we're pulling everything apart in the engine compartment here. So go ahead and pull your cap on a cool engine, relieve pressure, and then we can come down here on the passenger side of the radiator and look for this 19mm hex right there. You see it right there? Loosen that and they'll start draining the coolant. And then of course back here is where the oil pan drain plug is at. Let them drain while we're pulling everything else out in the engine compartment. While you're underneath here draining fluids, it's a good time to start spraying everything with rust penetrant. I use the Mopar stuff. You can use PBB Blaster and get that locally. The areas you want to hit underneath here are the engine mounts. So there's 2 bolts right here, 2 nuts. There's one there and one there, a small one. Get those soaking. Generally this side is okay. We're gonna come over here. We're gonna hit these a couple times. The nuts for the cat converters for the downpipe here, those 2 15mm nuts on that side and this side. You can see them up inside of there. And while you're on this side, go ahead and hit all the bolts for the starter. They're all in here in the bell housing. A lot of times they corrode big time. This nut's gonna corrode for the ground strap. You wanna spray everything. Back here at the trans and the crossmember here, there's 2 bolts that bolt down the trans mount. We need to unbolt these and slide the trans back when we're pulling the engine. So spray these now too. Get these soaking. These will be really bad, just like this. Yeah, I think those are the main key areas you want to spray while you're underneath here. Do them a couple times, spray them really, really good. This stuff's gonna be corroded big time. All right, now with things draining and soaking down below, we can go ahead and start pulling out some of these big, bulky, easy to access items up here, and that's gonna open up the engine compartment so we can get to the meat and potatoes and start pulling this thing out of here. So first thing you wanna do is pull the battery out. We're gonna finish pulling that out. So pull the positive battery cable off of here, 8mm nut, and there should be an 8mm hold down bolt right there. Get this battery up and out of here. It's gonna be freaking heavy. While you're over here, once that's gone, you can start pulling the PCM out of here. These connectors simply pull back like that, and they come out. So take those out, and then there's 4 10mm bolts on here holding it to the bracket, and then behind that, there's a black bracket has 3 10mm bolts. Take that out, put it off to the side in the same place. Next, we're gonna get this air horn off of here. 1 10mm bolt right here, and then you pop it out of the air box and you wiggle it out from the fender over there and put it off to the side, bolt and air horn together. Then we'll go after the air box itself. There is a harness right here that clips into it. There's a PCV hose right there, just kind of comes off it like this, pull down on this and wiggle it out, and it comes out. And then on this side, there's a mass airflow sensor connector, and then 4 bolts. There's one right there, there, and right there. And that whole thing will just lift right up and off of there. While you're over here, go ahead and unbolt the power steering reservoir from the bracket. There's an 8mm bolt right there, and there. And then when we come back to it, we'll have access to the fan shroud, and we'll get that out of the way next too. And that's gonna open up the engine compartment big time so we can get to everything else. Look at that, everything is starting to open up in here with a few components removed. And remember, as you pull more and more stuff off, it's just gonna get easier and easier to work on. Now with that air box off of here, you want to put some rags on top of your throttle body so you can keep any debris from falling into the intake. I know the engine's junk, but we are reusing the intake manifold and you don't want anything down in there. Next, we're gonna concentrate on removing the fan and the shroud. In order to do so, first you wanna break torque on the hub on here. This one's a 36mm hex on here. Most of these are, up until I think mid-year 07. They went to a 47mm size on there. It gets huge. And those ones have a wire and an electro viscous clutch on there. So you see a big old wire coming up and over to this side right here, and it'll bracket in right here. If you have that, disconnect the electrical connector on this side while it's still bolted up. And then go ahead and unbolt the 13mm here. Take that and the bracket for the upper radiator hose away. And the same thing over here, 2 13mm nuts. Take them away with the bracket. And then once the fan clutch is loose, just leave it loose for right now, but attached, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna pull this appearance cover off of here. The early models had a big old one like this, and the later ones have a small one right here. Either way, they're held down with these scrivets. So you just unscrew them, put them off to the side, and this whole thing lifts off of here. And then you want to go after these 2 8mm bolts, one right there, and one over here on the top of the fan shroud. That's what holds it in. And also disconnect that harness that's clipped into the fan shroud. And then what you'll do is you'll spin the fan off by hand, okay, holding it, and get it separated from the water pump there and let it drop down slowly. And then we're gonna take off the fan shroud and the fan together, pull them up and out together. And you gotta kind of angle it and get it up out of there. Maybe I'll try to show you that for you guys. All right, so here's how you do it. It's a little tricky to get it out of there. So the fan has dropped down, we loosen it already. The fan shroud's ready to go. We're gonna pick it up straight, get it off the lower hooks in the radiator. Okay, we're all loose now, everything's loose and free. What we're gonna do is we're gonna pick up the fan and the shroud together. Okay, so you're gonna kind of pick up this one side over here, start clearing everything, make sure we're not binding in the fan. Then we're gonna stick our little arm through here, and we're gonna keep angling. You see how it keeps angling and dropping down over here and coming up over here? Get it angling and dropping. And then you come past your cooler lines over here, keep wiggling. It'll pop right past them, no sweat. And then it comes out together. Moving on, next we're going to remove the serpentine belt. The way you do that is use a 1/2-inch breaker bar or a ratchet, put in the tensioner down there and push down. That will release tension, pull it off one of the pulleys and it comes loose. Right now, before you do that though, is a good time to take a picture of the routing on here. So you have a note for later on, make it much easier. And then we're going to remove this bracket right here for the power steering reservoir. So take the reservoir and the hoses, point it down, tuck it out of the way, disconnect the cam sensor right here. You'll disconnect that, put it to the side. Then follow this harness over to the next retainer in the valve cover. You want to pop that off of there and get the harness out of the way. And then this bracket is pretty much free over here. Okay, it just kind of hooks around the stud right here. But down here, there's a big old 18mm bolt. You see it right there? Yeah, you gotta loosen that, 5-6 threads. You don't gotta take it out all the way. And then this thing kind of pull back, wiggle it, and get it up and out of there. And that'll make that nice and free. At this point is a good time also to pull this clamp right here and the upper radiator hose. Pull from this side too, so we're free and clear. And then over here for the reservoir, you want to pull this clamp it, pull it back and down, disconnect over here, and then take this hose and tuck it down and around the oil indicator tube right here. And that'll hold it in place while we're pulling the engine out. Yeah, so get that done for now, and then we'll come right back to it and go after the power steering pump. Now is a good time to start removing some of these odds and ends from the front of the engine. There are 4 15mm nuts in the front, right there. There's one right there. And both of these hold the radio interference capacitors in place. The problem with these is that you go to take these off and they're seized to the stud. So this whole thing wraps around and it ruins the capacitor. What you want to do is hold the hex behind here with the vice grips, needle nose vice grips, and then brake torque on these and get them off. Down below, straight down, there's another 15 right there for the power steering line. And then over here, there's another one for the trans cooler lines. And some models have it 13mm right here that holds the AC compressor muffler, okay? Also, you want to pull the alternators. You want to pull it all as one piece. So pull that bolt right there, that 10mm bolt right there, and then that one right there, okay? And then that one and that one. Disconnect the harness over here, follow it over to the positive. There's a 10mm nut right there. Pop that off, put the nut back on after you pull this cable off, and then you take the bracket, the cable, and the alternator out of the way. We need to get that out of here so we can get access to the intake manifold. Also, we need to pull the power steering pump, and this is going to be a chore. This one's actually seized on here, so I'm leaving it on, but normally you don't leave them on. The best way to do it, most of these they'll come off. Get this down and out of the way, and you can get access to the 2 top bolts on here. Let me get you in here. There's one right here, and there should be one right there. For those, I use a standard flex head 10mm gear wrench, and they come right off, no problem. Down below on the back side here, there's another bolt. It's actually a stud bolt, and I use a 10mm deep and a 1/4-inch ratchet for that. And you can get that from down below or up top here. There's no sweat. Now on the 04 models though, they had to be different. What they did on the 04 models is they put the bolt for the lower bolt, because they only use 3 bolts, they put the bolt in the front bolt hole here, which is right next to this high pressure line, so you can't get it out of there. What you can do is pull the oil filter off, okay? You want to pull the oil filter off so you can get access, and then you use a gear wrench like this, a straight one though, not a flex head, and you get down in here with the oil filter out of the way, and you can get behind here and wrench it off. You just kind of push the line back and out of the way, and you'll be able to get it onto the head of there, and you loosen it as the last bolt, and it'll loosen and it'll come away from the block all as one unit. The idea here is you want to unbolt the power steering pump from the block and kind of lay it to the side. High pressure line, these lines, everything stays in place, just lays off to the side. Like I said on this one, it's staying on because of the, it seized onto the block there. At this point, it's also a good idea with that pump out of the way, you'll be able to get to the clamp on this lower radiator hose where it goes into the oil filter adapter. I'll try to show you down in here. You can see it, you'll see it really easy with the, it's right there, see it right there? You'll be able to get to that very easy with this pump out of the way. So you want to unclamp that, and then you're going to take that hose, you're going to kind of fold it up and put it off to the side over here, and that'll keep it out of the way. Yeah, so get that done, and then we'll start attacking some of these hoses and harnesses up here on top of the engine. One thing I forgot to mention earlier is when you're pulling this lower radiator hose off, either from the radiator side like I had to because of my seized pump situation, or if you're pulling it off the oil filter adapter like you're supposed to, either way, there's going to be a huge flood of coolant coming out of there. Even with the radiator drained, it's all trapped in there, so be ready for that with the drain bucket. The other thing I forgot to mention is once you pull the nut off this stud down here on the passenger side lower, you want to go ahead and slide off your trans cooler lines and battery cable brackets, get them down and underneath there and disconnected so they're not hanging up when we're pulling the engine out. Now, at this point, we can come up top here and just concentrate on everything up top here. It's a huge mess. The idea is to clear all this stuff off of here so we can get the engine ready for intake removal. That's the next big step. So even though the battery box is not really in the way of pulling the engine out, it makes some of these connections over here much easier to do. So what I'll do is I'll take it out. There's 4 13mm bolts, top and bottom on here, and they pull up and away, and there's a little vacuum line in the backside there. The other thing is there's a connection right here, the vacuum connection going over and feeding the IWEs and the HVAC system, so disconnect it right there. So that's disconnected from the engine. And next, after that, you want to start removing all these heater hoses. So there's a clamp right here, and then you go back up and underneath here, and there's another heater hose right here. Both sides are quick disconnects. What you do with these, you push them in, you squeeze on a quick disconnect, and then you pull them off, okay, on each one of them. And then, of course, follow this one over to the heater core and disconnect that one too. Then what you want to do is pull off these PCV lines on both sides, one right here too. The way these come off is the same way I showed earlier. You simply pull back on this locking tab, okay, and then you wiggle and you pull up, and they'll slide right out. They're all quick disconnects on there. Your evap hose right here, you simply come in and you press in on the release, wiggle, 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 and it pulls right off. We'll tuck that onto the intake and take it off with the intake. And then at that point, we're going after the engine harness. Now, some guys disconnect whatever they need to from the intake when we pull it, and they leave the harness on the engine. I don't do that. I pull the whole thing off, put it off to the side, and I do a good inspection of it, and it's cleaner to get to everything with it out of the way. So just follow the harness all the way around. So here's a piece of the engine harness. You just keep following it down. Cam sensor. Down here we have crank sensor and an AC. And you follow it up all the way at VCT. And you just kind of follow it along until everything's disconnected and you can take it off the vehicle. So yeah, it's a huge mess, but it's going to be real nice once it's all gone from here and out of the way. So we'll come back after this and we'll start pulling the intake. All right, up next is intake removal. What we're going to do first is we're going to get in here with some compressed air, and we're going to clean out all around the intake, around the water crossover, the intake. It's like one big valley down here. It collects all kinds of stuff. Also, you want to clean your fuel line connection. You can see it's just full of packed of stuff. You want to get that clean before you disconnect it. And then we can come over here and start pulling items like this ground strap right here, 8mm bolt, unbolt it, lay it down, and then put that bolt right back in. There's a special ground bolt. Then we're going to go over here and we're going to start unbolting all these ignition coils. There's 7mm bolts on both sides. There's 4 on each side. So go ahead and pull the bolts and the coils, get them out of here. And then we can start concentrating on pulling the water crossover and the intake together. So the first thing you want to do is unbolt the water crossover. It's 8mm bolts, a 10mm bolt, 2 8mm bolts right here for the water neck. Then you can get to that one right there. It's another 8mm. That one's a little hard to get to, so you just wait on that until you unbolt the intake. Now, what you want to do is go along. There's about 4 or 5 10mm bolts all the way back that bolt this intake to the heads. Now, once the intake is unbolted, you kind of lift it up a little bit and it's loose. You can get to this last bolt right here very easy. It's another 8mm right there for the water crossover. And then once the intake's up and out of the way and this is unbolted, you can lift up and snake it out of there. Now, once it's out of there, we can go ahead and lift the intake and pull it forward a little bit. And that's going to allow us access to the backside here, which is going to give us access to a bunch of connections, especially in the earlier models. The 09 and 10 models don't have all these IMRC rods and connections back here, so it's a little easier. But you see all these connections here, here, and there on the other side too. And then you see that main harness right there? That actually bolts up to the intake. There's a stud coming out the back of the intake and a nut. See, it's a 10mm nut on there. Might be able to see it right here, I don't know. But it's right there in the center. You'll see it and you'll feel it. So you're gonna need to disconnect all of that, noting the routing through the IMRC rods, so it goes back together the same way, else you're gonna hang up those IMRC rods. Pay attention. Now, it's a little hard to get to all this stuff right now, but once you unbolt the intake, pull it up forward like that, it'll be easy to get behind there and start unbolting all this stuff and seeing what you're doing. The other thing that I'm doing, just because I have the recovery machine over there, is I'm sucking down the AC system and I'm pulling all these AC lines out of the way, including the accumulator right there. You don't necessarily have to do that. You can kind of unbolt the accumulator and move it out of the way a little bit and snake the engine out. But because I have the machine, I'm pulling all that stuff. Either way, you need to get in here and pull the AC compressor. We need to unbolt it from the block. Now, the way you do that is you go down underneath the vehicle and you'll see a 10mm bolt right there. There's one further back, you see it there. And there's one single one up here, right there. They're all 10mm, you unbolt it. You won't be able to take out this top one, but you can pull out the 2 bottom ones, no sweat, get them out of there. The AC compressor will fall away from the block, and then you pull it forward with the lines attached, and you just kind of lay it right here on the crossover, this cross member right here, and it'll be out of the way while we're pulling the engine. So, go ahead and get to all that stuff, and once all that's out of there, we'll be able to fully remove the engine harness too, because we'll be able to get to the rest of the connections back there and get that totally out of there. And then we can basically start unbolting the engine from the engine mounts and the transmission, and it lifts right up and out of here. Pretty cool, huh? All right, now with the intake unbolted, I'll show you how this looks. This last bolt right here is still holding it in on the water crossover, but the intake's unbolted. It's gonna be a little, like that. It's gonna be stuck after a while. So what you wanna do is lift it up high enough like that so you can get in here and unbolt it. It's an 8mm. You'll be able to get in there. Just kind of lift up, pull back, just like that. And then you can wiggle that. See that? Lift this up a little bit, and that'll come out of the way. All right, now let's show you real quick about the fuel connection over here. Now, most of them have the regular spring lock connection like this, the garter spring, which uses a 5/8 quick disconnect from Lyle. It's really basic. What you want to do is, of course, make sure it's clean. And then we're going to push it forward a little bit, you know, kind of move it around a little bit. And then we're going to push in the quick disconnect with our rag. And I'll disconnect it. Now, later models have like a blue clip on here. You simply pull back one side of the clip, then squeeze it together and pull it through. So those are I think from 07 on, you'll see that. So the way this looks is you simply push it in, get a rag around it. It should be low pressure, if no pressure by now, and you'll release it. Just like that. Get it off of there so you guys can see. Now inspect these 2 O-rings on here, make sure they're okay. Get this stuff off of here, and then we can pull this. Now, while you're pulling the intake up and off of here, and you're going like this, and you're like this, there's gonna be a lot of fuel pouring out of here, so be ready for that. Besides that, like I said, wiggle, 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 get this thing up and out of here. and pull it forward about 6 inches or so, 3, 4, 5, 6 inches, as much as you can, and then you can start getting behind here to unbolt all that stuff and release the intake. It's kind of a pain, but you can do it. Here's a good visual of how it's gonna look when you're pulling the intake up and out here. Yes, you can't just pull it and be easy. Of course, it's gotta be complex. So once you get it up and out this far, you'll notice it gets hung up back there. So back here, I can show you now, all these harnesses right here, see all these connections for the knock sensor and everything else down there? They go up and over these IMRC rods. You see the rods right there going across? They go up and over, they don't go behind it. You need to pay attention to the routing. Look behind here, and the same thing on the other side. All these connections go up and over the rods, okay? So pay attention to that coming out and going back together. I think there's 2 connections on both sides, and then there's 1 connection in the middle for the IMRC motor. So start disconnecting all that, let it fall through, and then you should be able to pull this intake up and out of here. With the intake off of there, I'm gonna show you a bit better, just to clarify, to help you out, because it's really tight back there. All the connections you're gonna disconnect to pull that intake off. So there's this one right here, and that's for the CHT sensor. We have the one right there coming on up for the knock sensor, right-hand bank. We have one over here for that bank, knock sensor. And then here is the IMRC connector. And you'll also have to deal with this big brake booster vacuum hose. Now, it looks just like this in the 04 models only, whereas the 05s, it's a little bit different. Either way, it clamps in down there or doesn't clamp in, pushes on, depending on your setup. And it's probably pretty swollen, and it probably is just gonna fall right off. But if you're catching, you're hanging up on anything, it's gonna be that vacuum connection right there. Now, with that out of the way, we can start removing the entire engine harness, so we can get the engine out of here next. I mean, this is like one of the last major items up top here is the harness. So what you'll notice is that it'll be connected going down right here. See, there's one wire right there, and then there's one on this side, and those are going to the O2 sensors. So you want to disconnect those from the bracket, unclip them, and then at that point, pretty much you should be able to pull this whole harness up and out of here. At that point, it'll be nice and free back here. What you want to do is get in here with a ratchet or a flex head. There's 13 millimeters, the bolt right there, see right there, and right there. Those are the 2 top Bellhousing bolts that are a bit hard to get to from down below. As you can see right here, they're pretty much right in front of you. So unclip the vent and you'll be able to get to this one, and the same thing on this side. No sweat. And get those bolts out of here. Then at that point, we can literally go down below and start unbolting from the frame and the transmission so it's loose and free to come out. All right, at this point, with everything torn apart top side, you can see it's one big mess up in there, but it is all apart, ready to go. We need to do the same thing down below here. There's a lot of different items to unbolt and get ready for engine removal. And then at the very end, I'll show you in detail how to separate the trans from the engine so we can get that out of the way. And then this thing will be ready for lift off at that point, lift up and out of there. So underneath the vehicle here, there's a bunch of items we need to unbolt, starting off with the engine mounts. So on the passenger side here, there's me 2 big studs coming through and 13/16 nuts on the plate right here. You want to take all that off on 05 and newer models, whereas the 04 models has a 13/16, like a 13 mil over here. I want to take those out. Either way, on the driver's side, this big long bolt will be the same. So it's a 15/16 head on there, and you want to use a long extension and a 1/2-inch breaker bar. You know, kind of get the extension in there, bring it back to here, and use your bar and loosen it. Okay, you want to loosen by hand because the impact will not break that free. There's tons of Loctite on that big old bolt in there. So we're going to take that bolt fully out, and we're going to take these nuts fully out, and that'll free the engine from the frame. Don't worry, the engine's not going anywhere. Next, we're gonna remove the starter. So there's let me get a hand up in there. 13 mil nut there, 10 mil nut there. And then over here, there's a bunch of bolts where it bolts up to the engine blocks. Let me get a better view here. So down below here, there's a stud. It's a 13 mil, and it's a 13 mil nut on there, holds the ground. And then if you go up top here more, you'll see there's another bolt there, and then even further up, there's another bolt. Those are also 13 millimeter. I do have a detailed video on how to remove a starter on one of these vehicles. That'll help you out tremendously, okay? Now, the exhaust on here, either way, they're gonna look a little bit different, but they're all gonna have a 15 millimeter nut on there. So one right there, and of course, one top side there, you kind of see it. And the same thing on the driver's side here. And they'll disconnect the exhaust from the engine, okay? Next, you want to remove this bracket right here for the transmission shift linkage, okay? It's a good idea to pop it off of there. It just kind of like get your cat claw in here and just pop it off, okay? These are two 10 mil nuts. And then you want to unclip your wiring here for the oxygen sensor. This harness this side, and that harness goes all the way up, you see up there? That goes to the engine harness that you're trying to pull off top side. So you need to disconnect it from down here, and then this whole thing will pull up and off of there. Leave this dangling. This bracket and the cable can stay together, dangle off to the side, and that'll give us access to the bell housing bolts on here, okay? Now there's 1, 2, and that should be it, 1, 2 up there, and then there's one hidden behind here, see them? Now, on the passenger side, they're a little bit harder to get to. You can kind of see one right there, see it? 113 mil right there, and one right here. So go ahead and pull all those bolts out, but these two bottom ones, one right there, and one right here, that's hidden behind here, we're just gonna loosen them, you know, a few threads, and that's gonna hold and support the trans while we're separating it on there. So leave the bottom ones in there, easy to access. Now, the one other thing we need to do is unbolt the trans from the crossmember here. So there's two 18 millimeter nuts. Go ahead and pull those off, and then we'll use that to slide the whole trans back here in a minute when I show you how to do that when we're separating the trans from the engine. Let me think, what else down here? There's not too much more. You can see I gotta pull the AC compressor on mine still and stuff like that. You can also see this big gaping hole here from the front axle being gone. It's much easier on two-wheel drive vehicles. The other thing on two-wheel drive vehicles is you're gonna have the big old transfer case right here and the front propeller shaft coming up to the front differential right here. You wanna unbolt it right here. There's the 4 bolts on the front drive shaft. They're 12 mil, 12 point. You want to unbolt them and separate the drive shaft from the pinion flange on there, and that'll just kind of rest right here out of the way, okay? And that'll be separated, so when we slide the transmission and the transfer case back all as one, that drive shaft's gonna get dragged back with it, okay? And that'll allow us the ability to slide that all back together. So, yeah, let's look around down here. You can see we're just gonna unbolt a bunch of different items and get it free. And then next, we'll show you how to separate the trans from the engine and get that separated. At that point, this baby's gonna be a rockin'. You move it, it's just gonna sit there and rock. It'll be free and ready to go. We are so close, guys. Just a few more items to remove and disconnect, and we'll have this engine out of here in no time. The next thing we need to concentrate on is disconnecting the engine from the transmission here. And the first step in that process is to remove the rear drive shaft. The way you do that is you come back here and you chock your wheels, because remember, we're pulling the drive shaft and that's the only thing holding the vehicle from rolling away. So you need to chock your wheels. Then we're gonna go ahead and pen mark it so we can line it up going back together. And then you can proceed to remove the 4 12.12 millimeter bolts. Once you get the last one out of there, hold the drive shaft with your hand so it doesn't come down your face, and you want to tap on it on either side with a hammer, and that'll kind of break the rust bond to the pinion flange here. This whole thing will drop down, and then you come over to the transfer case and just pull back and it'll slide right out of there. The reason we're doing this is because once the transmission is disconnected from the engine, we're gonna slide it back. Remember those slots I talked about earlier in here? We have a full inch, we can slide the whole assembly back and out of the way, and that'll give us clearance to pull the engine out. The one other thing you wanna do while you're underneath here is come up on the passenger side fender here, pull back the skirt, and you see that big old 18mm bolt right there? That holds the transmission dipstick tube in place into the head. So pull that out and then just swing the dipstick tube out of the way. All right, now comes the critical point of unbolting the torque converter nuts at the flex plate right here. So what you wanna do is line up the torque converter nuts, which are 14mm, with this relief in the pan right here. See this relief in the pan? This will allow you to get a ratchet up inside of here and break torque on those. So I'll try to hold the camera while I show you. So we have this little extra room in here to get up in here with a regular 3/8 ratchet, get it on there, and then we're gonna start to loosen it. You can see the whole assembly is moving, that's just fine. What you wanna do, let me get a better grip here, is get it to the point where it hits the separator plate there, it'll stop and it'll hold it for you. And then you can break torque on it. Once you break torque on it, you want to get this out of there and then finish off pulling it out with a regular 14mm gear wrench in there, and that'll come right out. Then there's 3 more of them inside of there. So what you want to do is come up to the front of the crankshaft here. There's an 18mm bolt right there. You're going to use that to turn the crankshaft clockwise as needed, so you can line up the next stud and nut with this relief in the pan here. So you can get that one off too, and there's 4 of them. Once that's done, we can go ahead and start loosening the rest of these Bellhousing bolts out of there, and then we'll work on sliding this whole thing back and disconnecting from the engine. Now the time has come to separate the transmission from the engine. And the way we do this is we're still gonna keep these 2 Bellhousing bolts in that we left earlier, one on this side and then one on this side. They're gonna stay in there just like that, still threaded in. And then we're gonna come back here to the transmission crossmember. And remember earlier I showed how it's oval inside of here? Well, these nuts are out. This thing's ready to slide back, so you simply get in here with the Big Pry Bar to one of the studs, and you're gonna pry. And the whole thing will move back, just like that. Kind of jostle a little bit, and it'll move back, and you start to see it over here, how it's separating from the trans, from the engine on there. So let's keep doing that. Just like that, see how it moves, goes side to side, stud to stud, and you can keep going back on there and get it separated. Now once it's separated enough, you can get a pry bar up in here and kind of help it over here at the source where we need to separate it at. On this side right here, you come on this side, you can see it's nowhere near as far out as the other side. Sometimes they get stuck on the dowel pins, which are usually right here or here. So these ones need a little bit extra attention with the pry bar right here, a long flat blade screwdriver to kind of get it even and get it unstuck from this side. And then you simply just keep going back until you hit the back here and you can't go any further. That'll be enough disconnect from the engine over here for us to get it up and out of there and clear those studs on the torque converter. Now for the final disconnect from the engine, what you want to do is come underneath here with a jack and a block of wood like that, spanning across the front ridge of the pan. We'll support the transmission ever so slightly, and then we'll finish pulling these bolts out right here. So it's supported in the back, supported in the front, and get the Bellhousing bolts out of there, like so. And then you can get a pry bar in here and finish separating it on both sides as far back as it goes in these slots. All the way back. You want as much room as possible, as much disconnect as possible from the engine. Now, at this point, the engine is ready to come out. But first we gotta clear some space. So you can get it out with the radiator in, but it's iffy because it's right there. If the thing dangles and moves forward, it's gonna smash right into it. So it's pretty easy to get it out, pop the trans cooler lines, and then there's a 10mm bolt here and on the other side, and this whole thing will lift up and out here and be safe then. It's a good idea to flush it anyways, like I'm gonna do on mine. Over here, you definitely need to remove the wiper cowl. You see how far out it sticks on there compared to the firewall right here? I mean, it sticks way out, so it's gotta get out of there. What you do is just pop this off of here, and then you kind of squeeze back at these points right here, squeeze and lift, okay? And then over here is a little push pin retainer. And once you flip this up, you can kind of pull out the whole wiper cowl here where it hooks underneath the windshield there. First though, you want to go ahead and remove your wiper arms, and luckily they're very easy on these. You kind of pull up like that so it's loose, and then you come to the lock right here, pull out with your fingernail, and up and out it goes. And then once all that's out of there, there's a bunch of 5.5mm screws all the way along on here that hold this up. Get those out of there, and we'll be ready to start pulling the engine up and out of there. And so next what we'll do is we'll show you how to secure your lifting sling to the engine valley here and pull it out finally. All right, now at this point, just do a quick visual check, make sure everything's disconnected from the engine. Of course, the trans is now fully separated as far back as we can go. You should be able to move it just like this, seems ultra loose. And we can go ahead and start mounting up our chains, our lifting sling, whatever you have, your equalizer. You want to bolt it in up here in the front, in these two holes right here. They're M8 by 1.25s. And then these two holes back here, which are M10 by 1.5mm. So you want to go ahead and get those all bolted up to your lifting device, and then we'll get the engine crane over here and start lifting it out. Finally, the time has come to actually lift the engine up and out of the vehicle. So what you want to do is have your engine crane over here ready to go, recheck, double check, triple check all your attachment points, bolts, and nuts on here. Make sure nothing got loose and everything looks good. Now when you go ahead and start lifting it up, just about all of these will tilt back. So you want to kind of put some pressure in the front here and keep it level. If you have the equalizer, adjust the equalizer. And as you lift the engine up, you want to pump the trans up all the way till the top of the bellhousing there hits the body as it goes up. So as we're pumping over here, we're pumping over here. Okay, and now kind of max it out and allow it to lift up and out of the frame. And then once it gets out of the frame, the whole thing will slide forward and we can go up and out. Here we go. So I'll jack the trans up a little bit. Go ahead and jack the engine up. We'll give them about even. You want to start grabbing the engine and start wiggling a little bit. It's very, very loose right now. Keep going up. Hold on. Come over here. Raise the trans a little bit. Okay. Check it. Bell housing's getting close. I can probably go a little bit more. Right there. Lift. Your side. Wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. Now we're starting to come forward and disconnect. A little bit more. What he's doing right now is he's pumping. I'm wiggling and pulling forward. Okay? We're disconnecting from the trans. That's very, very important. Okay, now we're basically disconnected from the trans. We're kind of sitting level. We're going to just pull this back a little bit. Okay, pull back a little bit. I'll wiggle. We're still kind of pumping the frame a little bit right there. Perfect. Don't move it. We're away from the trans at this point, so concentrate on securing the trans. Make sure the trans isn't falling out. Make sure the torque converter isn't kind of popping out of there. We'll go up a little bit with the trans, that's it. Of course, there's any coolant leaking here and there as the engine tilts. At this point, we're far enough forward, we just need to go up until we start hitting this wiper cowl right here, or the firewall. and then we can come forward and up and out. So go ahead. And it's at this point that you want to look around and kind of see and make sure you're not attached to anything still. We're free right now. We're just dangling, nothing pulling. No weird sounds. Okay, hold on. Now we're at the point we're hitting the firewall, the underneath there. So we're going to pull it forward. And this is where it gets tricky if you still have the radiator in here. This thing's dangling all over the place, and it can easily hit it and damage it. Right now, it really can't damage much. Kind of jostle it forward a little bit. And between here and here, especially with all the accessories on there, it'll just make up and out of there. So kind of recenter it in there. Make sure you're clear of your dipstick tube over here. And go ahead and start lifting. Up. This one's holding pretty level. We're looking good down below. Bring it forward until it just about touches up here at the core support. And we're going to hit on the hose here, but you can keep going. All right, go ahead. Now you can see right here, we're right against it. That's good to go. You want to also look behind here, make sure that that flex plate's not chewing into the wiper cowl there. We're good there too. A little bit of leakage here. And once it gets past here, usually it starts swinging around all crazy. So be ready for it. See, right there, see? You gotta be ready for it. Okay. Keep going. What you want to do is just clear the core support right here. Just enough, that's it. A little more? All right, that's it, that's good. And what I do is I clear the vehicle as soon as possible. Okay? We're going that way, towards you. Don't push too much. We're at a high center of gravity right now, and you want to make sure that the lift is still stable. So at this point, we're clear of the vehicle. It's time to start bringing it down for safety. Make sure you're clear around it. Make sure you loosen it ever so slightly. And you lower the center of gravity. Hopefully you guys can still see all this. There. And then we'll swing it around, swing it around. Right, hit right here. Watch the car. Watch it right there. And it's out.